Well, hello there, and welcome to the living room of the Dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and you Stelfers for March 11th, the day of progressive intuition. That's right. And here at the top of the page, as a visual representational image of the day of progressive intuition, we have us an image of, what could it be? Boom, it's a bed of mushrooms growing up from, well, it looks like a plate stone, or maybe it's a piece of wood. The piece of wood makes a little more sense, but it looks like a rock, if we're being honest. That said, does that speak to the day of progressive intuition? Hey, who's to say? Maybe very well could. That being said, not altogether all too important, the visual representational image there. What is important, however, is it is March 11th, and hence it's somebody's birthday. So if your birthday's March 11th, I just want to say happy birthday. That's right. That's what's important around these here parts. Wishing you a happy birthday. But if this video finds you late, I don't know, days, weeks, months, whatever the case may happen to be, well, I hope you had a happy birthday in that instance. But for everybody else who's joining us randomly, or more ideally to celebrate, hey, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the redirect, something I like to do around these here parts, and that is roll some dice, all right? This is the DykASSt birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake, but if you've been here before and you don't want to see as much, hey, just go ahead, pass the dice roll there, and get right into the read. But for everybody else who's been here the first time, outside of living up to the namesake, I do this more importantly for synchronicity's sake, all right? And I rolled us 5, 2 for 7. Now, what is synchronicity, you're probably wondering? Well, my friends, as I hear it told, the universe or the higher powers that be will oftentimes put things down in our path to help us realize our goals or manifest our aspirations. And oftentimes I hear it told also that we also have the blinders on to what's going on around us. So we may be apt to miss the things the universe is putting in our path. So this is a little bit of an exercise to help us take those things down and start seeing such things. All right. But how do we start seeing such things? Well, we need a sign that we can't help but notice. Well, hopefully. That's right. Something agreed upon between us and the universe. That's why we got to the daily numbers here. Your 2 and your 5 for a 7. Now, you don't have to go with the numbers I rolled for you. The intention is there, but it's probably ideal you take your own set of dice if you want to try this out. So you can set your own, what you call, directional values to number sets, as well as time limits with which to go in those directions. You're essentially letting the universe take the wheel and drive and show you what it shows you, all right? That said, once you've figured all that out, hey, pick out a place near and dear to your heart, or perhaps some place that you've never gone to before that you want to explore, and set on out. But like I said, get those blinders off, all right? You never know, the day might start to take on a little bit of a theme, okay? Let's take the visual representational image, the mushrooms growing off of a rock. Hey, you might literally run into such things all over the place. You're like, no, I never saw mushrooms before, or at least this often. They might just start popping up all over. That said, they might not be literal mushrooms. You might just start to see, I don't know, stickers on the sides of transformer boxes. You never know with them slap taggers. Or maybe you start to see advertisements with mushrooms incorporated, or just decorations of as much all over the place. You never know, so you have to be open to it. But that said, it can be just about anything. It might not be the mushrooms, all right? Probably won't be. That said, you start off on this first directional value time limit, and maybe you're not seeing anything outside the norm, if you like. The everyday goings on. Hey, never fret, just kind of take things in stride. At the very least, you're getting your steps in, right? That said, maybe at the end of this time value, you stop, look around, maybe you notice something small. Like, I don't know, maybe you're on old 25th Street or 7th Avenue, whatever the case may happen to be. I would take that as a sign you're on the right path. So you roll your dice again, maybe at this end of this time value. Hey, maybe you find yourself in front of a building that just so happens to have, boom, 25 in the address. I would take that as a sign also. Maybe go in there. Maybe it's a store. What do they sell? Hey, you know what? Maybe it's a farmer's market. And the first stall, hey, what are they selling? That's right. Some mushrooms, hey, or whatever the theme of the day might seem to be, okay? So again, I would kind of take that as a sign that things are lining up for you. And maybe the person in the stall asks you if they can help you. You say, just be honest with them. Tell them what's going on. I'm just here on account of synchronicity. I'm trying to see what the universe has in store for me. And they say, well, maybe they have some mushrooms in store for you. And you go, maybe they do. And you show them this video, show them your dice, and they go, that's just crazy. Mushrooms, right? And you go, I know. And then they go, you know what's even crazier, they might tell you? What's that, you wonder? Well, it's my birthday too, they may say. That's right. I often like to use that example as an awesome kind of synchronicity to just give you an example of the kind of things that might present. I know it seems a little outlandish, but hey, it's not outside the realm of possibility. What else might happen? Well, hey, they might just so happen to close up shop for the day because nobody else is in the market for mushrooms either. And you know what? They aren't doing anything important for their birthday, so they might just happen to join you. And if they do, what's great about that is, the way I hear it told, the more people who are focused on the same thing, well, you're apt to beget greater results. So maybe you get out there with this new individual, meet a new friend, hey, you share a birthday, so there's something in common. And you know what? You get out and start stacking up more synchronicities, all right? That's it. I think you get the idea. So get out there, see, taste, touch, smell, intuit just a little bit of the magic, and you understand why I brought it up. All right, I think you get the idea. Let's get on with the birthday read, all right? Your month is March. Your day is the 11th. Your sign is 19 to 21 degrees Pisces of the Pisces III period specifically. First day of it, as it turns out. And your quality and elements is mutable water. All right, March 11th, the day of progressive intuition. Those born on March 11 keep abreast of the times. And whether liberal or conservative in outlook, they are progressive in thought. And that is, they know that to be out of touch or unaware of what is going on socially around them is perhaps to say goodbye to one's career. They see the world as a highly competitive place where only the quick and clever survive. They see the world as highly competitive place, like I said, where the quick and the clever survive. Redundant there. But in their private lives, however, they allow themselves to express the dreamier, more relaxed side of their nature. Chewing over ideas and speculation through conversation with friends or family, and perhaps developing imaginative projects. In both areas of their life, however, the unifying talent which they employ is their intuition, which for the most part serves them well. And March 11 people believe that if they stand still in the world, they are going backwards, since others rather will simply leave them behind. They are nonetheless moderately rather than fiercely ambitious, moving ahead with assurance and clarity of vision. And should they work a regular job, they will put themselves in a position in which they can be promoted, but may not actively push or politic for it. And their idea is that by making valuable contributions, they will be noticed and advance at the right time. Whether this is correct in their assumption or not may depend on the fairness of the work environment and the culture in which they live. And if they are self-employed, however, or own their own business, they have a decided talent for seeing a hidden opportunity and going for it. And once they have assessed such an opportunity, they will not hesitate to put a sizable part of their material resources in the service of their intuitions. Thus, they make good investors and gamblers, and since they are courageous enough to take educated risks, but wise enough to avoid foolish endeavors. Another trait which serves them well is their taste, and they not only have an instinctive feeling for what is good and worthwhile, but also are quick to learn about what makes objects or ideas valuable. And some March 11 people can even select items which appear phony or cheap, but later prove to have great worth. March 11 people have a claiming and controlling aspect to their personality as well. They don't part with what they have very easily, and that goes for people as well as things. As family members, they invariably find themselves in the center of what is going on and where they can exercise powerful decisions affecting the lives of both their parents and their children. They must avoid arousing antagonism and rebelliousness in the latter, who may wish to have a greater degree of freedom or independence. In many areas, March 11 people could learn to let go a bit more, to relax their control over the environment. And more highly evolved individuals born on this day will learn to trust the universe and to realize that, in essence, nothing is really lost, and thus freeing themselves by renouncing a claiming attitude. Ultimately, their intuition will lead them to value their own freedom more than either possessions or personal control. Well, all right. This was a pretty interesting birthday breakdown, to be sure. They definitely seeded that theme in there quite a bit. Sometimes the theme comes up and they don't really touch back down on it outside of the first sentence there. That said, this was a pretty well-rounded birthday breakdown, I would argue. They got into some of the weeds with... They ventured out into the weeds, if you like, with the parenting and the children, and oftentimes they don't do that. They also expanded on the professional pursuits, the different areas there, self-employed or in a job. A lot of times they'll drill down on the theme, especially in this period they've been doing as much, and they just hyper-focus on that area and expand out from there. Here I would say they went out in other areas that weren't in particularly specific to the theme, if you like. And so I like to say when it's well-rounded in those respects and just kind of point it out. And so here today, you kind of bucked with a bit of a trend where they were just really hyper-focused on things since past maybe the beginning of Capricorn there. In any event, I like to provide a little bit of a commentary, if you like, on everything we read, maybe make connections with the period, the book at large, things I found interesting, etc. So let's dive into it, all right? A little bit of a commentary, if you like, for March 11, the day of progressive intuition. You're said to have a keen eye on the times, and you may be progressive of thought, regardless of a liberal or conservative outlook. You also might take a line that being in touch with such realities isn't just essential to your work, but also in surviving out in the real world. The competitive approach you may apply to such a philosophy, however, may largely get left at the office, the way I read it, which, as it turns out, is a bit of a through line for the period, and a kind of a schism or compartmentalization that many, if not all, people born under Pisces possess in one form or another. But for you, it may be where you allow yourself to let that competitive side take a break, I would say. And you can exercise the more imaginative aspects of your nature. And it's where your intuition, however, where you may be able to unify these two camps, whether you find yourself self-employed or working a regular job. The reading examines how you may position yourself in these particular circumstances through the use of this talent. Identifying opportunity, places you shine, cultivating clarity of vision, and then having the courage to act on your convictions. Sometimes that doesn't happen, interestingly. And I would argue perhaps in no small part, having a delineation between your work and your private worlds may help you cultivate this dynamic even further. To say earmarking a time and a focus to give each paradigm its own space to breathe and further germinate, if you like. And then it would lend to future synthesis of the two instead of trying to juggle them both in the same space or area. That said, having an eye for matters of taste is also said to be a place where you shine, and being able to discern an object for its present or future value. And I reckon that extends more than just to material objects. And I think they even said as much there. But you're also said to be very controlling or claiming to that end, to say that not parting with what you've earned for yourself without an ostensible fight, all right? All of which makes a certain amount of sense if you are, in fact, competitive, as they said. You see things for their value, and you've cultivated a system of winning it would seem like. So relinquishing what you have earned in those terms, I don't know. I can see it as a pretty hard sell for you. All right. So perfectly understandable, I would say, within the context of everything they presented. Any event, that's what I had to say about the birthday breakdown. Hopefully open some things up for you there. I know it was a little bit of a rehash, but sometimes when going over those such things, we can provide further context as we get on with the read. That having been said, let's move on to your numbers and your planets. Let's run a little bit premature with the transition there. Let's make up for it with your numbers and your planets. All right, there we go. Those born on the 11th of the month are ruled by the number 2, as 1 + 1 = 2, and by the moon. And since those ruled by the number 2 often make good co-workers and partners, rather than leaders, it says, the social talents of March 11 people may be enhanced. Because Pisces is ruled by Neptune, March 11 people come under a Moon-Neptune connection, which grants strong intuitions, but also a propensity for a runaway imagination. The number 11 lends a feeling for the physical plane, as well as a possible interest in doubles of various kinds. Well, all right, a little bit unfortunate we didn't roll doubles today and to that end, but hey, you know what? That's how it goes. We've done it once on occasion, but in any event, I might be getting ahead of myself with certain things or bringing up things that don't necessarily matter more aptly. In any event, let's get into the notes once again. Here we go. The number 2 in the moon for traits of making good co-workers and partners versus leaders, and also with enhanced social talents. As a novel entry considering the passive and reflective traits that they tend to seed into the entry here with the numbers and planets, they didn't bring it up. All right, it's a quality they usually impart in the entry. To just kind of say, normally that's what comes up, but maybe you don't possess that as much, so they left it out to some extent. Here today, as is often the case, I have a very hard time kind of reconciling this coworker/partner dynamic over a leadership dynamic there. As the breakdown described, almost a trailblazing kind of personality in your striving after intuitive ends. At least I would argue. And this is often the case when this kind of thing presents. Also, interestingly, a lot of times when you see someone who doesn't seem like a leader, they're more often apt to leave that part out and make it sound like they're leaders. So I don't know if it's just a disconnect, but it's something I picked up on because it made it sound like you were a bit of a leader, at least in my opinion. That said, it was also claimed that you like to be at the center of things, all right? And that would speak to the social talents, I would argue. But Neptune is the planet of dreams and visions, and there's also said to be a magnetism that allows you to dissolve barriers between rigid and absolute natures elsewhere in the book under Neptune's power, which lends also, I would argue, to this speaking of your imaginative aspects of your life that play such an integral role. Just mind you don't let your imagination run away with you. As they said, the moon and Neptune have a strong connection with this much. It's also said that Neptune folks tend to have their head up in the clouds a little bit. They lean into an ideal or a higher cause. Sometimes that higher cause just so happens to be striving after their own ends. And I would say that's kind of where we're getting to in this latter Pisces area period there. The beginning of Pisces, it seemed like everybody had a higher cause that they were dedicating themselves to. It is a little bit pick your poison type thing. I've still seen it come up here in and day out, but more often than not, it's an individual kind of focus. So here for you, I would say it's a little bit more of an individual focus, but they also have that social element baked in there. So I'm sure you're apt to lend a little bit of credence to both, probably. That said, that's been your numbers and planets. Hopefully imparted a little bit more value than, or information at least, from other areas of the book that they weren't able to incorporate into the entry at large. That said, your numbers and planets having been said, let's move on to your tarot. That's right, one of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies. But hey, it's here in the book. Sometimes we can make further connotations with what's been brought up in the breakdown. So let's dive into it, see what it has to say, and then we can just leave it in the book, all right? We don't have to go home and start dealing out cards to inspire our future or what have you. So in any event, the 11th card of the major arcana is Justice, a serene seated woman holding the scales in one hand and a sword in the other. She reminds us of the order of the universe and that balance and harmony will have to be maintained in our lives as long as we continue on our path. The positive aspects of this card are integrity, fairness, honesty, and discipline. And the negative aspects are low initiative, impersonality, fear of innovation, and grievances. All right. Total copy-paste job here with the tarot today. Not uncommon. Once in a while they'll button it with a little bit of a personal note, but not today. So it goes. That kind of happens when they personalize the numbers and planets. And I'd say they did that a little bit for you here today because the moon and Neptune dynamic, the kind of bolstering of each other there, that one's pretty specific and it doesn't come up all that often. That said, let's see what I had to say about your tarot, all right? Justice, for a reminder of balance, harmony, and order of the universe, all right? And that such things will be maintained if we continue on our path. And considering the compartmentalization that you're claimed to enact between your personal work and your fantasy reality, I'd say that there's these dynamics in there. It's kind of going to affect a realization of your desires, all right? So I would say that the card's description in and of itself in those regards is very apt, all right? To continue on that path and you're just going to get what you need or what you're striving after, if you like. With positive aspects of integrity, fairness, honesty, and discipline, I would say they were well on display also, specifically in regards to you being employed in a job there. And your work, you're making your valuable contributions over politicking to be promoted. All right, I'd say that's honest. There's integrity involved there. Whereas those other people are conniving, they're searching for opportunism, striving to get to the top, no matter whether it's earned properly or not. All right, but negatives of low initiative, grievances, fear of innovation. And I didn't see that so much with the negatives there, at least as things that were brought up in the breakdown. Though staking claims and being controlling did come up in the breakdown. Maybe the most negative aspect there, I would say. But I suppose those could be somewhat fear-based in a way. No one wants to lose what they've fought for, right? So I don't know if that necessarily speaks to the negatives like they said, but hey, everybody's got a little bit of fear in them. So there might have been a little bit of a disconnect with the negative aspects there. Maybe you could call that grievances. Not quite sure, especially if you lost the job that you were striving to earn just based on your true merit, especially if it was someone who was politicking, backroom deals and such. But yeah, just keep going, I would say. All right, keep doing what you do. So I think the tarot card is very apt in those regards with what they brought up. Any event, that's been your tarot. So let's move on to your health. All right. Those born on March 11 are usually very aware of how they look and are anxious to make a good impression. Consequently, they will need to take particular care of their skin, hair, nails, and their teeth. And seeing that they get the proper vitamins as well as using the proper cosmetic aids is essential to their efforts in this area. March 11 people often make excellent cooks and can enjoy entertaining the right people in their homes, and thus combining business and pleasure. Their aesthetic sensitivity to food and presentation is usually strongly marked. And all substances that produce mucus, such as cheeses, especially rich ones, it says in parentheticals, should be eaten in moderation. March 11 people must be particularly careful not to go overboard on cream, butter, and sugar. Vigorous exercise is recommended for those born on this day, but competitive sports should be avoided. All right, they did a lot of detail work today with your health entry. Not altogether all too common. All right, hey, let's dive into it here. I might be burning things down by saying anything else. It says you may be very aware of your appearance and hence to take care of such things with vitamins and the like. Very rare entry in this particular period, in this novel for this period actually, but it's a very rare entry in the book at large. It does come up once in a while, however. But you're given recommendations to help realize such things, like I said, with the vitamins and such. And probably drinking a lot of water there. Just the other day, maybe yesterday or the day before, somebody had issues with fluid retention. So, you know what? It's such close proximity to today. Make sure you're drinking your water there. I don't know where they got the fluid retention thing. It was pretty interesting. But not for you, just making a point there. So they said cooking for your diet, it might be something that you're into based on aesthetics. And that is not at all a very common thing, even though this culinary penchant to expand as much has been going on ever since Capricorn, very interestingly. And I couldn't quite reckon as to why they would bring it up. Like when usually they'd bring up very specific foods that people should be mindful of consuming for their diet. Here for you, they mentioned cutting dairy out essentially, and I would say that's because the one of the Pisces body areas is the lymphatic system. And so you don't want mucus to build up. You want things free flowing, all right? The other body area be the lower legs, feet, and toes there. Don't think dairy affects them quite as much, but it's just something to be mindful of. That being said, we have the diet recommendation of the dairy, like I said. And what also was very uncommon was this synthesizing of your two worlds. Very novel in respect to that. Your business and your pleasure there. Because what were we talking about? Not politicking at the job. And maybe you're doing a little bit of that at home using the culinary effects there. Also, the aesthetic aspect there with the food. This got brought up one other day where they were attracted to food based on aesthetic, or the plating of as much, if you like. And so that was a very novel entry for that day. Seems to have carried forward with you as well, pretty interestingly. What else they had to say here? They mentioned the diet, but the exercise to be vigorous, all right? Not all too common in this particular period. I would say they probably brought that up because you have this moon-Neptune dynamic going on, and so you're very high up in the clouds, if you like, based on these higher ideals. And so ostensibly the common denominator there with the exercise is dependent upon what kind of energy is going on, to ground you or to help bring you or soften you a little bit. Oftentimes the Mars days, they're very aggressive energy, they get recommended a vigorous exercise, sometimes with combative sports. Here for you, I think they just want you to get a little bit more grounded, make sure your imagination isn't running off with you, so you're expending some of that mental power in the vigorous exercise. But they did mention non-competitive sports, so they probably don't want you going too hard, if you like. What else did they have to say? They didn't drill down too much on that outside of on the exercise outside of that. But again, it's probably just to help you keep your head down out of the clouds and balance that imaginative energy. So anyway, I just had a couple more notes. I know I said all of that. Just want to make sure I got everything there for you. Not trying to be redundant. All right. So anyway, that's been your health. Let's move on to some advice. That's right. Get some more advice. Okay, here we go. Deepen your thoughts and your feelings. All right. And don't be too concerned with tangible goals. Put more energy into your spiritual development. All right. And don't be afraid to let things go. All right. Hey, I like this. I like this. A little surprised by the spiritual development aspect. I figured that'd be well developed, but I guess imagination and spirituality, a little bit different there. In any event, what did I have to say about what they had to say? All right, bear with me. My writing is tiny. I had to put it here in the book, so I might stifle myself a little bit. Here we go. They said deepen your thoughts and your feelings, all right? So maybe a bit too focused on material goals, it sounds like, and superficialities, perhaps, versus what's really going on in the world, or at least under the surface, if you like. Because they said you have an eye for taste and those other such things in the bargain, but maybe you're just kind of looking too surface level, perhaps. It said this extends to not being so concerned with tangible goals, perhaps. They're important. They're an important facet of functioning in the world, I would say, but not the be-all, end-all. All right, we got to get some kind of fulfillment out of life too, I would say, not just reaching our goals, but the process. All right. So put more energy into spiritual development, they said. Really focus maybe on disconnecting during that compartmentalization period that you're said to employ as you shift the schism between your work life and your private life, all right? At least for a little while, I would say. Let the imagination and the fantasy world go too a little bit. Maybe exercise being rooted in the real world when you're at home. Vice versa. Get a little more imaginative at work, perhaps, who's to say. But also cultivate self-awareness, I would say. They didn't really bring this up, but it is a watchword through line in the book at large. And I might not have mentioned it here for you specifically, but I reckon it was written in there a little bit in between the lines. What else do they say? Not being afraid to let go. All right. So it will come. And also that aspect of your life will probably come a bit easier if you better understand who you are and why you do the things you do, or at least think on as much, recognize as much, and then you can see where you can maybe improve on such things. And how you rally to say maybe the low initiative that comes in those moments where maybe you don't feel like you're getting what you deserve. All right, ostensibly when maybe somebody else gets promoted over you, despite all the value you add in there. It happens, right? Any event, that's what I had to say about your advice. So let's move on to your meditation. That's right. It's your birthday. You get something to think about, all right? As you're developing more spiritually there. All right, here we go. Imagine having to carry everything you own. Oh, interesting. We were talking about materialism. Here we go here. Imagine having to carry everything you own. All right. Hey, your birthday, your meditation. I'm not going to try to throw what I think about it outside of what I've already said about as much in your direction there. It's just for you to figure out and kind of take along with you. It would kind of defeat the purpose of it being a meditation if I said much. So hopefully I didn't ruin it for you there by saying what I said. But again, I think you get the point. So let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. That's right. Let's see where you got the girth and we otherwise atrophied as we hold up the objective mirror. That's right. Not the subjective one where you're focused on your looks and such, but the objective mirror. Here we go. Your strengths, you're shrewd. Oh, you're tasteful. And you're charming. Nice. But your weaknesses, oh, let's hold up that objective mirror, but flip it to the side that blows up your face. All right, maybe shows off things that are otherwise a little more superficially, maybe a little more superficially insecure about there within the metaphor. That's right. Your weaknesses, you're possessive. Hey, we heard that. You're claiming. We heard that too. And you're domineering. Oh, I would say that kind of dovetails between the two, wouldn't it? It bridges the schism, if you like, perhaps. You know what? Oftentimes I like to argue that our strengths can help us overcome our weaknesses, if there's something that needs to be improved upon in that respect anyway. Also, I like to make a case that our weaknesses can also be strengths. So let's see if I can do that today, all right? Said you're shrewd, which means you're clever in your awareness, also in practical matters. You could also be clever also. So oftentimes I hear shrewd, it sounds like a bad thing, but I would say it's not. So if you're shrewd, all right, you're clever in practical matters, you see things clearly, you know what, I would say if you see a weakness, you're going to go after it on how to improve it. You're going to have a very interesting way of approaching doing as much as well, all right? Cultivating that self-awareness that we mentioned. Also said you're tasteful. Hey, you're going to do so in a respectable way, I would say. As respectable as you, not trying to politic for that job outside of inviting folks over for dinner. Ostensibly laying off the cheese, though, in your respect, all right? Though you probably have some for your guests. That said, you're charming as well. Hey, you're going to, when they ask you why you're not eating the cheese, you're going to find some way of relating, like, it's bad for my lymphatic system, but please enjoy. I prefer to indulge in cream when I touch on the dairy. Who's to say? But that said, you're charming about things. You're going to find a very lighthearted way to go about improving your own weaknesses, I would say. So don't neglect treating yourself well, I would argue. That said, what's the case for you? Weaknesses being strengths? All right, let's see if I can pull out a bag of tricks and make this work for you. It said you're possessive. All right, coming in on that claiming kind of thing they were talking about. So I see why they say it's a weakness. It's a bad look in a lot of cases. But possessive, how is that a strength? I would say if you've got something that is hard-earned, all right, you're going to know all the ins and outs about it because, you know what, you earned it yourself, all right? And so outside of this whole aspect of thinking about, oh, it's mine, you're clamoring after it, I'm not going to let anybody in on it, there's things that you've learned about as much. There's experiences baked into it. So even if you do let it go at some point, you can understand how it worked. You can understand how it benefited your life, and in certain ways, I would say that's a strength. What did you take with you in the journey to, I don't know, not only possess the thing, but also to maybe let it go? What can you learn rather, in having let it go as well? And maybe letting it go allows somebody else to earn those experiences as well. How does it benefit their life? Maybe, I don't know if that's necessarily a strength, because the letting go aspect is more the strength, but I think it's a very interesting notion to consider. All right. So the claiming aspect, how can that be a strength outside of it being a weakness? Oh, this one's interesting too. I would say it dovetails right with the possessiveness aspect, the claiming thing. But if we think of it more in terms of property or people, I don't know. Maybe there's a certain kind of strength in showing that, hey, I have a firm resolve with this particular area of this thing that's mine, or this individual that's mine. You know what? Sometimes people don't see what things mean to us, because we aren't that flamboyant about it, if you like. Maybe not the right word, but a lot of people don't show strength in, this is mine. All right, I've earned it, and I claim it. All right. Again, probably a bad look, but I think you get what I'm trying to say here. Some folks don't show enough fortitude in claiming what is theirs. That said, I think you need to pick your situations very carefully in that respect, because you come off claiming too much, like I said. Bad look, all right? So there's strength in it too, but you just got to find your opportunities there, judge the situations. Maybe you do claim something in that way, but maybe you just don't make it too well announced in that respect, depending upon the situation. That said, domineering, okay, sometimes we need to stake our claim in that way, be a little bit strong. Sometimes I bring up the example of being in the boardroom, and we got to get this contract signed. Well, maybe you're on the other side of that contract, and people are trying to buy your particular, the thing that you possess, right? Your intellectual property, if you like. People really want that. Maybe they're underselling it, though. Hey, you know what? You need to stake your claim, show a little bit of dominance over this thing. Hey, if you really want it, you're going to have to show up, show me the money, right? Okay? Maybe that's a strength in those respects. But outside of that, too, again, you got to know your situation. Maybe the IP is not strong enough to merit you being too possessive about it, all right? But maybe it is. So understand the situation and when to be taking hold of the situation, if you like. Again, it can be a bad look, so you got to use that charm, all right? You got to be shrewd in your matters and be tasteful in the situation, all right? Not my strongest case for the strengths and weaknesses, but I think I made one in no small part, so not a abysmal failure. But I also like to say, hey, don't get rid of your weaknesses altogether, because they're part of who you are, all right? Maybe not the most integral, but who's to say? That's for you to decide. That having been said, your strengths and weaknesses having been relayed, let's move on to those born on this day. That's right. Let's see who shares your company. But something I like to do when we get into those born on this day is look at it from the perspective of trying to figure out our passions. That's right. Let's see who shares your company, but maybe try to take some inspiration for the things that we want to strive after in life. Outside, considering what they did to get in the book. And I bring this up because a lot of times I get out in the world and meet folks, ask them what they do, and more importantly, if they like it. And a lot of times they don't, because I think a lot of times they just got out of school or out of the family as the kids there, right into a job to make ends meet. And the fatal flaw there was it was probably something that they had no desire to do outside of making some money. And I think at a certain point we need to have the root of it be something that we get fulfillment from outside of the money, all right? Find that disconnect there where we can compartmentalize the two. So I think this is the perfect opportunity to maybe examine that, because if there's anything I can wish for somebody on their birthday, it's that they're chasing after a purpose or a passion, something they can get fulfillment from in life. So if you don't have that in your life, hey, let's take a moment to carve out some time and consideration for as much, because a lot of of times in life, we don't make the time to figure such things out. And I think they require just that, time, energy, and effort. All right, so let's dive into those born on this day. Here we go. We have Marius Petipa, an early French-Russian classical ballet choreographer and the original choreographer for Dostoyevsky's Swan Lake. And I'm probably saying that wrong, but also Sleeping Beauty. We have Ralph D. Abernathy, the NAACP head, Rupert Murdoch, the Australian U.S. newspaper magnate, and also the London Times, Sunday Times, and the Sky TV owner. We also have Dorothy Schiff, New York Times owner and publisher, and heiress. Ooh, a lot of magnets here. I'm seeing a theme. Let's see if it holds up. We also have Bobby McFerrin, jazz singer, Raoul Walsh, a film director of White Heat, The Naked and the Dead, as well as a producer and an actor. We also have Dorothy Gish, a stage and silent film actress, and it says sister of Lillian. Harold Wilson, a British prime minister. Antonin Scalia, the Supreme Court Justice, Alfred Lowenstein, a financier, Lawrence Welk, a TV band leader and a host, Douglas Adams, the British science fiction writer of A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Mercer Ellington, a jazz trumpeter, composer, and in the Ellington band, he was the Ellington band leader to say Duke's son. Also the writer of Duke Ellington in Person. We also have Robert Mossbacher, a commerce secretary and a sailor, it says. Sam Donaldson, a TV journalist and a host. Claude Jutra, a French-Canadian director of Mon Oncle Antoine, and suffered from Alzheimer's disease at 57, and it says found in the St. Lawrence River, unfortunately. Sometimes they bring up these somber notes, or even some individuals who we wouldn't want to have read on our birthday, all right? But got to take the good, the bad with the good sometimes, I would say. Learn from that if you like. In any event, moving on, we have Torquato Tasso, an Italian 16th century poet. Madeleine McQueenie, a banking executive. We have Julius Blunther, a German piano manufacturer. And Kenneth H. Miller, a New York painter and an etcher. Etcher, if I didn't say that properly. Any event, boy, we had a lot of artists, a lot of business executives, influential magnates, what do they call it, empire-building individuals. Very dynamic day. Did that speak to progressive intuition? Might just have. That said, I'm pretty sure I butchered quite a few names in there, so let's make up for it on my side of things. Not done in malice, it's just hooked on phonics isn't the best tool for pronouncing names. But that having been said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading. Except to say, your season is winter, your sign is Pisces, of the Pisces III period specifically, and your quality and element is mutable water. And this has been March 11th, the day of Progressive Intuition, from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Hugh Stelfers. I don't know that we made a case for the mushrooms on the rock, but hey, sometimes they're rather enigmatic images. But in any event, I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description, right above a personal message I like to put together for the birthday boys and girls, ladies and gents. So if you're interested in checking out the message, give it a look. Interested in buying the book, hey, click the link, save the hassle having to type it in a browser there. This thing makes an excellent coffee table book. That's how it was introduced into my life. And I feel like I'm all the better for it, all right? It's going to help you break the ice if that's something you struggle with. But they said you're a social person, likes to be at the center of it all. Hey, you know what? You probably have no issue in those regards. But hey, maybe one of these times when you want to really impress the boss for one of your social dinners, hey, you know what? This thing might help you do the lion's share of the lifting in that respect. That said, book having been relayed, not altogether all too important in the scheme of things. Because like I said at the top, what's important around here? Wishing you a happy birthday. So once again, happy birthday. But for everybody else who joined us randomly or more ideally are here to celebrate, well, I just want to say I hope you enjoyed yourselves, took something of value even though it wasn't your birthday, and you join us for your birthday reading, all right? That said, before I take us out, lest I forget your daily numbers, all right? Your 5 and your 2 for a 7. Get out there, let the universe show you it's with you on your path. Stack up some synchronicities or some coincidences if you like. I think they're interchangeable, and you're apt to see why I brought it up, all right? See, taste, touch, feel, intuition. to it, a little bit of the magic, and I think you'll find it was pretty interesting. All right, if you're doing something fun on your birthday, I'll argue. That said, I just want to thank you for the pleasure of your time. It was a privilege to celebrate your birthday with you. To celebrate, rather. All right. So once again, happy birthday. All right. Stay away from that cheese and dairy. Okay. Take care of your lymphatic system. Happy birthday.